No, I wanted to sit down with Brett here. Obviously, he and I have been friends for a while. I've been working with him. He's helped me with my wrist issues. I've been dodging his services ever since, due to whatever excuse I can come up with on any given day. But I wanted to get him in here and confront him today about his expertise. Now tell me, you're not a physical therapist.
No, I am not a physical therapist. I am an athletic trainer.
Then why do I want to come to you?
Great question. So I have a lot of parallels to physical therapy. It's just my background is derived a little bit more in high school and collegiate athletics. And so I have a little bit more experience with emergency medicine, with sport-specific biomechanics through the coursework that I took, and a little bit more of an emphasis on like the sports medicine and sports performance side of things.
Okay.
Now for physical therapy, they are developing more like specialties that you can go into once you get your PT degree. And so that is definitely helping to kind of broaden the scope for physical therapists. You know, a lot of people may think the physical therapists just work in a hospital maybe, or they just do acute care. But a lot of physical therapists also work in like sports performance clinics and sports medicine clinics as well. And with my expertise as an athletic trainer, I just have a little bit of a different emphasis in my educational curriculum. For example, spine boarding somebody if they go down with an accident on the field. If somebody were to have a cardiac event on the field, I'm trained in that type of protocol to be able to get the right emergency action plan in place, contacting the appropriate people, making sure that they're stabilized and their vitals are accounted for and things like that. But through my education, I ended up getting my doctorate in athletic training at Indiana State. Shout out Sycamores, roll trees. And
roll trees.
Hashtag roll trees. And that allowed me to start to delve a little bit more into the manual therapy and the hands-on treatments and applications that physical therapists are so very good at.
That's awesome.
So I have the opportunity of having some hands-on experience and manual therapy experience that's similar to a physical therapist, but some of the sports performance, sports medicine background, and I try to blend those together when I'm working and collaborating with other PTs and ATs.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So, you know, I'm not going to mess up and just call you just Brett, AT. Like you're Dr. Brett now.
Yes.
I refuse to let myself or anybody here call you just Brett.
EST 2019. So it's been a few years.
Boom. Don't you guys forget it. So you work actually like right down beside us pretty much at Progressive Mobility. What's that experience been like for you?
It's been awesome. So working at Progressive Mobility, Physio and Performance has been great. When I was working in the collegiate setting as an athletic trainer, I love the collegiate setting. I'll always love the collegiate setting. But when it comes to the high school and collegiate settings for athletic trainers, there is a little bit, you have to make sure that you're in the right environment, you have the right support. I felt like I just wasn't a good fit. There were things that I wanted to do a little differently. I felt like the work-life balance, I just wasn't able to achieve what I wanted from a work-life balance perspective. And I felt like I had, you know, more to offer in terms of building a business, being able to contact people, communicate with people, kind of entrepreneurial opportunities, giving back to the community, things like that. I felt like I kind of got bogged down in having to be there, you know, 60, 70 hours a week. I don't think that college athletic training should work that way anymore. And I'm still very passionate about helping people figure out how to combat that. But then it was actually my wife that asked Jen when we were at a workshop at Iron House if Jen was interested in hiring an athletic trainer.
Okay.
And Jen didn't know a lot about athletic trainers at the time. And she was like, yeah, like I'm open to it. And so Jen and I sat down. This is Jen Wallace, by the way, owner of Progressive Mobility. And so her and I, we sat down, talked for like 2 hours about what I do, what she does. She taught me a lot about like acute care and like post-op rehab and those considerations. I talked a lot about like sports medicine and biomechanics and the emergency care side of things, like taping, bracing, those types of things. And we just realized that we could learn a lot from one another.
Yeah.
And I asked her if she had any opportunities for me, and she gave me a shot. And I started working for her full-time January of this year.
Nice,
so
man. Nice. And I would say you're given an opportunity, or you have created an opportunity for yourself to not just work for Jen, but also, you know, build Progressive Mobility alongside Jen.
Absolutely.
It's like kind of how I see it, at least, just from the growth that you guys have experienced over the last few months. And It's been incredible, nothing short of incredible, to have you guys as neighbors to us here in Spartanburg.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're able to, if there's somebody who comes into the store and has a specific issue or condition or something they're concerned about that is totally out of my scope of practice of nutrition, we're able to just send them, hey, walk down the road, or go talk to these guys. They'll be able to fit you in and kind of schedule you for something. So
exactly, and I love that you brought that up, because we have the same thought process when we're trying to bring people over to your store. A good example is that we pride ourselves on not putting people in a position where they have to rely on injections or non-steroid anti-inflammatories, surgery, things like that. We want to help people learn how to help their body heal itself, and then other non-toxic and non-addictive ways to improve the body. And so a good example is like inflammation is a big thing. Like we don't want people to be reliant on ibuprofen and Tylenol and naproxen, things like that. And I've come to you guys multiple times asking for what's a good supplement to help with inflammation that's not an NSAID that somebody could use as another piece to their rehab protocol. Another one is Extreme Joint Care, is one that we've collaborated on. Multiple people. I'm able to call up Jacob or walk in the store and talk to Austin or Owen or Steve and ask them about, certain joint supplements, something that's a little bit more robust than a glucosamine chondroitin, for example, something very common that people get over the counter or like at Costco or a wholesale. And you guys just have more specific understanding and knowledge of the chemicals and the compounds that actually go into those supplements. And so for me, being able to have that access to just walk somebody around the corner and talking to experts like them has been instrumental in us helping to build the brand and build the collaboration, because people really appreciate being able to not only talk to us, but be able to talk to you guys as well.
Well, and that's one thing people always want. And it makes them feel comforted in their decicision-making process when they have outside opinions that reassure them on what they're about to embark on. So, that's a big one, though. We actually don't get, prior to, working with you and having people come up here from being referred from you guys, we don't get a lot of questions about inflammation specifically. And I think it's because people don't know to ask about inflammation. They don't realize that is a hindrance possibly in their recovery.
Absolutely.
So if you don't mind, go into a little bit about what inflammation is and why it might be beneficial to reduce in the case of an athletic training recovery from injury or, some kind of physical therapy related instance.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we work out, when we engage in activity, our muscles produce metabolic waste, and that fluid gets excreted, and there is only so much space in between the muscles and the tissues within, let's take our quad, for example. And if we get some inflammation within the knee is always a good example. People get some puffiness around the knee, maybe on the underside of the kneecap or on the outsides of the kneecap. That fluid is just built up in that space, and sometimes that fluid can become stagnant. And this fluid fills up the interstitial space, which is the space between the cells and the muscles and all the compounds that form the structures of our knee. And either from injury, like an acute injury where we go through the inflammatory phase where the body kind of creates this influx of fluid around an area to protect it. And another one would be like post-operative. So somebody finishes up with a knee surgery, for example, and they have that fluid that's been created as a result of the physical traumas that surgery has to make in order to make repairs. People become, concerned about it and worried about it, kind of figuring out what needs to happen. And essentially there's fluid that needs to be moved out of the system, and we have a myriad of ways that we can teach people how to do it, but we can't always be with them hands-on 100% of the time. And so we have to look into what type of chemical mediators does the body need in order to help us move that fluid out. And so an example would be, if you think about all that swelling in your knee joint has less comfortable space to move around. If you imagine like I had a piece of string in my hands and you were to pull that piece of string out to be able to slide through. But if that fluid accumulates and it grips down on the structure that is needing to move, then when you're asking me to, or I ask someone to pull that string out from my hands, it's not going to be able to do it. Or they're going to have to work a lot harder to create the sliding and gliding of the muscles and tendons and other structures. And so that increase in fluid is essentially what's reducing that amount of space for things to move free flowingly.
Nice.
And so what we do from the physical therapy and the athletic training aspect of it is we use soft tissue therapy, like with our hands or with a device. We use blood flow restriction therapy, which is like a pumping system. So it occludes or cuts off the blood supply to an area for a period of time, and then it opens it up, and it creates this natural pumping mechanism that the body uses to excrete fluid and inflammation to the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is what helps to excrete all the waste and the metabolic waste, similar to when we are done working out. It's the same concept. The lymphatic system has to get all the energy and all the waste that we excreted from exercise, similar to the stuff that's created post-injury.
Right.
And so from that aspect, we then start to think, okay, is there a product that's not Tylenol or ibuprofen? Is there something that has other medical properties or chemical properties that could help aid the body? And that's where we come to Jacob and his team, and we talk to them about, like, okay, what are some supplements that we would use to help complement the work that we're doing in the office or the clinic to help push that fluid out.
Right.
So what does that look like for you when you're talking to somebody about an anti-inflammatory supplement?
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify, in their mind at least, or educate them on what form of inflammation are we talking about. There's a damaging form of inflammation, which is what you're referring to, I believe, where it's preventing range of motion or possibly stalling out somebody's recovery process.
Right.
But, there's also inflammation that occurs as a indicator of damage or recovery in and of itself, such as the pump.
Yep.
People think of a muscle pump as like this gnarly orgasmic thing, which it can be. But it really is it's acute inflammation.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. It's a sign that your body has been under a load of damage where there's micro tears going on.
Yep.
And so getting down to the bottom of with this individual, whether it's, is it a chronic inflammation thing? Like, are you just waking up and you got swelling knees and joints every single day and it's red and there's fever to the touch? That's where we need to discuss things like where your body, or things that can encourage your body to reduce its own inflammation. My favorite one to talk about is curcumin, simply because just like other things in our body, we have our own opioid receptors, we have our own cannabinoid receptors, we have our own curcuminoid receptors that are very, very, very prominent for reducing inflammation in these specific sites. And so essentially what it does is it binds to these receptors, turns them on, and it kind of kickstarts your body's own lymphatic, process of reduction of inflammation. Now, is it as effective as an NSAID? In some regards, yes, because it doesn't destroy your stomach lining. It's not nephrotoxic on your kidneys. But in an acute reduction in inflammation, I would say no, not as effective.
Right.
But, that's why we only take things like ibuprofen for short stints. We don't need to become dependent on those as a daily inflammation reducer, So I guess that's kind of the process we look for if we basically screen them. Now, if they come from you or another professional that we trust, we kind of already know that they've been screened and know exactly what to recommend them. But inflammation's an interesting topic.
Absolutely.
It can go deep.
Yes, it can. And I like to think of the lymphatic system as like a filter in a fish tank. If you're not moving the fluid appropriately and you're not working on getting that swelling out, either through manual options, through like massage or soft tissue work, using recovery boots or BFR, for example, or having a supplement, like an ancillary supplement that helps to create the chemical changes in your body that you need to go through by ingesting that supplement, then the fish tank filter starts to get gunky and kind of nasty. And you'd imagine like a fish tank that sits there for a long time and then it gets real dark in the water. You're not sure if the fish is alive or not. Haven't seen it swimming around in a few days.
Yeah.
Being able to use supplements in conjunction with physical therapy or physical rehabilitation, that combination helps to keep the lymphatic system stimulated and activated, and that filter in the fish tank stays on to help be able to push that fluid out so we can start to create the strength gains that we need, the balance and coordination gains that we need, particularly like post-injury or post-surgery are two of the super common ones. Right.
And that's one thing to speak on inflammation a little bit more kind of in my spectrum is it's been popular over the last 10, 15 years to approach dieting from an anti-inflammatory standpoint, which is great. However, I'd put a slight comma there. great for people who struggle with chronic inflammation that medication has not resolved. But for people who are normal, active, healthy individuals, an inflammation response is typically a good thing. If you get hit on the shoulder and you start to swell and bruise, or you get feverish to the touch there, inflammation's occurring. Your body is rushing blood to that area to go ahead and start its recovery process.
Right.
You don't need to blunt that by eating a specific diet or taking NSAIDs or, reducing your body's own natural recovery kickstart all of a sudden. Now, if it's been going on a few days and it's like a chronic issue, like with what I've been dealing with, that's where I think it's probably a different story.
Right.
But yeah, man. No,
Absolutely.
Thanks for getting bricked up with me today, bro. I don't even know how long we've been talking.
I don't either, but probably long enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could. The full guys, if you want to check in and learn more, make sure you check out Progressive Mobility _AT on Instagram.
Yep.
This will be going live in its full-fledged documentary form on YouTube. But stay tuned on our social media feeds as little spits and I guess spurts come out over the next few weeks.